Okay, so that's a bad move.
Now I
King
can drive this knight
Oh,
away.
okay, so sorry, king h2. But king f2, I wanted to play king h2 so I could play rook f1. But
I
king
think
f2
I
also
take
makes sense.
the bishop.
Okay, so he's going to go into a heading,
Ooh,
I guess.
I want to take that pawn.
So he should probably play knight takes bishop,
But I
and then
want to take
bishop
the bishop
e6,
instead.
and then try to win this rook and pawn ending. It's probably the clearest way to win.
Out of there.
Okay, so he decides to chase the knight away. So he wants to keep the bishop. It's fine too. He has to be careful about that e4. So he should play e4 here. e4 and then e5. See, now he's in a little bit of trouble. Because now if he plays bishop c2, knight c4 forks those pawns. And or else knight e4 is coming. So now he made it substantially harder on himself.
Okay, I think I need to do...
So if he plays king f4, for example, black can just play knight e4, and it's tricky again. Yeah, bishop c2, the problem is knight c4, and you're losing a pawn.
I don't know what to do.
Could be his aquarium, guys. So knight b5. Threatening knight takes d4, guys. So he has to see that. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh, crap.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
That's okay.
No, he loses the exchange.
That's not okay.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
So, he had it.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
He had it. But now not
I am in trouble.
So, part of the reason he lost is because of time. And part of the reason he lost is because he didn't take care of preventing counterplay. So you always have to prevent counterplay when you're up a pawn. And unfortunately... I think it's feedback, guys. Just so you know. But it does sound hilarious. It does sound hilarious.
Okay. Interesting. No.
I'm laughing out loud over here. You guys are funny. You guys are funny. But yeah, black's losing, unfortunately. I mean, white's losing, unfortunately.
I don't know what he's trying to do. But okay. And he has so much time. Okay. Oh, what?
Okay, so he's trying to come back, but the problem is all the pawns are on dark squares, so and his king is immobilized by that rook. So it's just a matter of time before the king takes all the pawn. So I'm pretty sure black knows the right technique. It's just a question of time. But yeah, this is tough. This is really tough. But white was playing so well before. He deserved better. He really deserved better.
Oh.
So maybe he should try. He probably should have tried b4 and a5 sooner. Well, now rook takes bishop this way, among other things, but yeah, because if rook takes bishop, it's a one king and pawn ending. So he can try bishop d5 now. But basically, this rook will sacrifice itself for a bishop and a pawn. And then
I should be losing. I'm not yet.
Yeah, but black is not really doing too much. Bishop g8.
Hell?
Yeah, Yeah, bishop c4 is fine too. So yeah, this rook should get to behind this pawn, and simply rook takes pawn should win. And his king is cut off, so his king can't go after these pawns. But so he should just play rook e1, rook b1, and rook takes b3. That's the simplest. I don't know why black's not doing that. Yeah, I'm laughing. I was laughing way too hard. Laughing way too hard. I had to mute the stream for like 45 seconds. Oh man. You guys are terrible. He's the star of the stream. He's the star of the stream. Oh man. You guys are punny. You guys are punny. Alright, I don't know what Black's doing here. He should just...
I think he should just sack his rook for a bishop and a pawn and then win the game.
Oh man.
I think it's just that simple.
Oh, he lost on... What?
Oh, it was my turn?
See? What? No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
No, what?
Yeah. Look at this.
Oh,
Ugh.
I didn't even realize it was my turn.
Hey, I saw that. I have no idea. This is the second time in 3 games that this has happened to someone on my stream. I saw it was his move, and then you lost on time.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
oh,
it was his move, but I don't know what happened. It's ChessCube. Just rack it up to ChessCube.
Well, it's weird because it's never actually, this never happened before.
No, I know. It happens all the time on ChessCube. It's like the worst site ever. I apologize, but you were losing, to be fair, so...
Well, I mean, I had nothing really, probably going to lose, but it would have been interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't exhibiting great winning technique, but I mean, at least in this game you were probably going to lose, so... I don't feel so bad about it, but still, it's ridiculous that it even happens. Okay, so do you want to go over it a little bit now?
Sure.
Okay.
You already went over it, but you're going to, like, do it again?
Yeah, I'll do it just for you, and then go over just some quick stuff, but, okay. So, on move 4, you played knight f3, and I noticed that you were talking about not really knowing what to do in this opening. But
yeah.
This is a really common opening that Black will try against d4, the King's Indian. So it's good to know just what the basic plans are at least. So usually what's going to happen is it's funny that you never played e4, but usually white plays e4 in this position and establishes a nice pawn center on c4, d4, and e4. And then basically you just develop. You play knight f3, you play bishop e2, you castle, and then eventually they're going to play e5 or c5 to try to break open your center and on the dark squares. And then what you usually do is you play d5 to push through, and then you basically play for c5. So you basically develop all your pieces to play for c5. So you play like bishop e3, you play rook c1, you play b4, you put your knight, move your knight from f3 back to e1, then to c2, or from e1 to d3. Sorry. So you move your knight from f3 to e1 to d3. You basically just point your pieces towards c5, and you try to break open the c file, and you go for a queenside attack. And meanwhile, black's going to be trying to play f5, f4, g5, g4, and trying to attack you on the king side. So basically, you're attacking on the queen side, he's attacking on the king side. But
you know what's funny is that I just realized, I think it's because I'm used to playing like e3 more.
Right.
In regular queens.
Right, in queen's gambits and stuff. Yep.
So that's why I kind of just went for it,
yep.
Even though I should have played e4.
Right, yeah. So that's an important thing about noticing move orders and noticing that. I notice there's actually a lot of times that people, regardless of what their opponent plays, kind of try to play their same thing regardless. And yeah. I mean, to be honest, the setup you had was perfectly fine, and you were actually winning at one point in the game. But it's just the most theoretically testing setup is to kind of control the center as much as possible. So I just wanted to tell you that just so you become more familiar with it, because I guarantee you'll see this opening again sooner rather than later. So, but I mean, there's nothing wrong at all with what you did. It's just not as common. That's all. So, so let's go a little bit forward. So you moved bishop f4 and knight f3, which is perfectly fine. So he played d5. So yeah, now it kind of is not looking like a King's Indian anymore because he played c6 and d5. Now it's kind of like a quasi Grunfeld type, Slav type, King's Indian type. I couldn't even characterize it in the chat properly, but it's kind of like a hybrid opening at this point. So you played e3.
I don't understand why he played c6.
Well, he wanted to play d5 basically, is why.
But like with the moves that he made,
Right,
it doesn't make sense.
exactly. So I mean, eventually he's going to try to play e5 as well. But I mean, it is a system. It's just not very common because you're absolutely right. Like his first three moves, g6, knight f6, and bishop g7, don't really coordinate with his last two moves, c6 and d5.
Yeah.
But it is a system, so it's just very uncommon. So you played bishop d3, which is fine. I thought you might have. You never really seemed to notice that you had this queen b3 idea, but it's actually quite common in these types of positions. So the idea of queen b3 is that you're attacking that b7 pawn, and so basically the bishop on c8 is tied to that b7 pawn, and also you're putting pressure on d5, and also you're getting out of the pin that's coming if he plays bishop g4. So in these types of positions, it's quite common actually. It's just something to look out for, the queen b3 idea, and especially after you played bishop d3, you played knight h5, you played bishop g3, and he played bishop g4. So now you had this idea where you could take on d5 after bishop g4, and then he takes with the pawn, and you play queen b3, forking the b7 and d5 pawns. And I think that wins a pawn for you, because if he defends d5, you can just take b7, and that bishop on g3 is actually a great piece because it's defending like the b8 square and stuff. And if he plays knight takes g3, which happened in the game, you can always play h takes g3, and you get that open h file for your rook, and your pawns are perfectly fine on g3 and g2. Like, they cover all those squares, so you shouldn't be too worried about it. So yeah, I thought you had an interesting chance to play pawn takes pawn and queen b3 there. But it didn't seem like you were noticing it. You were kind of worried about him playing e5, kind of worried about him playing knight takes bishop, kind of worried about the pin. But really, I mean, all those pieces are well defended, and you have nice development. Like, all your minor pieces are developed, whereas his knight on d8 is still kind of sitting there, and his knight on h5 is kind of out of play. So, so yeah, I think queen b3 would have been a good alternative there again.
It's interesting because like I just didn't even think about that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I'm not saying that it's always necessarily the best move, but especially in these types of positions when you have pawns on e3, d4, and c4, and there's still tension between the c4 and d5 pawns, queen b3 is often an idea, especially when that bishop has moved, because that b7 pawn will be under attack. And that bishop on g3 controls a lot of key squares. Like, he can't play like queen c7, for example. And even sometimes you have an idea where you can maybe just take that knight on b8 to disrupt him. So maybe like if you play like queen b3 and then maybe you play queen a3 to attack e7, and then you can maybe take the knight on b8 and then force his rook to take, and then you can take on a7. So there's all sorts of ideas where you attack on the queen side. But in general, since your pawns are pointing towards the queen side, I always mention that you kind of want to play where your pawns are pointing, and your pawns are on f2, e3, and d4. So those pawns are kind of giving an arrow towards the queen side. So you should be looking to play on the queen side. So so sometimes you play like c5 to kind of lock it up, and then you go for like a b4, b5 type idea. So it depends on the position, but yeah, you were kind of worried about the center, and really your center is not something you have to worry about, because I mean all your pieces are well developed, so you should never have to worry about a skirmish in the center. So you kind of have to look at where he's weakest, and currently he's weakest on the queen side because that's where he's the most undeveloped. So that kind of gives you a signal as to what side of the board you should be playing.
Right.
Okay, so you played h3, unfortunately, which so you were kind of worried about the pin, and you're kind of worried about his knight, but the only problem is you would have loved to take knight takes g3 with h takes g3, but now you're forced to take it with f takes g3. So
I just kind of assumed he would want to take my knight or my bishop, and then I'm like, well, the pawn structure would be okay. And if he didn't, I would have the f file, so I was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not
too bad.
terrible. It's just like that e3 pawn might become a liability at some point. And yeah, the f file actually played into your hands eventually,